Hello and welcome to another video tutorial for the Lightroom Learning Group. And in today's video tutorial, I just wanted to go more in depth about cloning and healing in Lightroom. We're also going to take this image into Photoshop as well and do some cloning there too. And you might be wondering why take it to Photoshop instead of just Lightroom? Well, sometimes it's easier and more productive to clone your image in Photoshop and then work on it later in Lightroom. We'll go through that here in detail, but first I want to start here in Lightroom and show you a good way to clone out a straight line or any kind of line in your image that you might have. So here I have an image of Agatti Falls in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, and I have this power line here running right through the middle of my image, and it just doesn't look really appealing there. So what I'd like to do is get rid of that. And of course, the best way to get rid of that is to use the clone or the heal tool while you're in Lightroom. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in. I'm going to hold down the space bar on my keyboard. That will bring up the magnifying glass, and I'll just click and I'll zoom in to the right hand portion of this image to where this power line begins. And you can see that I am already in the clone tool. If I wasn't, I could just tap the Q key on my keyboard to enter the clone and heal tool. And I have a fairly small brush. And of course, you can increase or decrease the brush size by using the brackets on your keyboard. So if I use the right bracket, it's going to make that brush bigger. If I use the left bracket, it's going to make that brush smaller. Now for this particular process here, with this small line kind of running through this image, it's going to be best to use a smaller brush. One that will cover the entire line, but not necessarily by a whole lot. Essentially, think of it as breaking that circle into thirds. So you want one third to be right in the middle. That's going to be the line that you're covering up. And then you want an equal distance above and below. So you essentially want to divide that circle into thirds with the main portion of your object covering the center third of your brush. Obviously, you don't have to get real specific with it, but just kind of eyeball it and hover over that. And to me, that looks like it's about a third on the top, the middle, and the bottom. So that looks like it's going to be a pretty good brush size. So you can use the clone or the heal. Now, in the past, I would only use the clone tool for something specific like this, something that is very detailed. I used to only like to use the clone tool. But through the updates of Lightroom, they have vastly improved the heal tool as well. It used to be the heal tool would do really well on very quick maybe spots on the image, and it would do a fine job with that. But as you got into more detailed work, it wouldn't do as well, and you'd want to kind of go to the clone tool for very detailed specific work. But through their many updates, they have improved the healing ability, and it's really gotten to the point where you can choose the clone or the heal tool for something specific like this, and they're both going to work fairly well. So let's just go ahead and dive in here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to have my heal tool selected, and I'm just going to click and drag. All right. Now, if I wanted to make a straight line, I could hold down my Shift key, and that is going to make a straight line as long as that's where you start. So let me go ahead and hit the Command Z on my keyboard to undo that. And if I hit the Shift key and then I drag over, it's going to make a perfectly straight line. So if you had a power line, say, going directly across your image, if you just held the Shift key down and drug over that, it would make a perfectly straight line. I'll go ahead and I'll delete that there because obviously I don't have a perfectly straight line here. So I'll just click and I will drag over this line here. And you don't want to do it in large strokes. You want to do it in smaller chunks, if you will. Because what you're going to be doing is you're going to be viewing this multiple times. So what I want to do is I want to unhide that brush spot. So I'm going to hit the H key on my keyboard to expose where it is gathering its information from. And then what I want to do is click that and kind of drag it around. And it is going to continue to heal as I drag that around. And you want to get it to a spot where it looks fairly natural. So right there looks pretty good. I'm going to hit that H key again to hide that. And that looks pretty good. We have this bright spot right here. So I'll just go back over that with that heal tool. And that looks fairly good there. And I'll just continue to move on here, just dragging my cursor across this line, trying to keep that crosshair right over the center of the power line. And wow, look at that. See, that did a really good job of cloning that spot there. But if I wanted to, again, I could just come down here and drag this around until I found a good alignment place. But it did a pretty good job initially. It actually did a really good job initially. And we'll hide that, and we'll just continue to move down the line here. And it is doing really a very good job of healing this up for me. And we'll click and we'll drag this. And again, it continues. The heal tool in Lightroom is very impressive. It has gotten so good over the years that it's almost scary. I mean, you can just see how quickly I am doing this, and it is looking really pretty good. Right here, it kind of breaks the trunk of that tree a little bit, so I'll go ahead and I'll expose that again, and I'll just click and I'll drag, and right in there, it's starting to look pretty good. I'll hit that H key again to expose that. So, you know, if you're looking at this image right here, you can see there's a little bit of a bend in the tree trunk there, and if you wanted to, you could kind of clone that away a little bit further, but you have to remember when you're doing this, you are zoomed in, hopefully to 100% or greater. And then if you zoom out, you'll be able to see how good this actually looks. We'll go ahead and do that now. So I'll hit the space bar on my keyboard to expose that hand. Then I'll click on the image, and that will zoom out. So now you can see that that entire area still looks really natural, really good. This is moving along pretty quickly, and the heal tool is really doing a great job. And we'll go ahead and continue to drag through here. And there we go. See, now it's gotten a little confused here. It's totally broken the trunk there, and it's added this little bit there. So again, I'll hit that H key, and that will expose where it is gathering its information from. And we'll take it up to maybe about there. And I'll hit that H key again. And now it's again looking fairly natural. And again, if you were, pixel peeping here and you had this image open on your computer, well, you could probably tell that that's maybe not an organic line there. But again, when you zoom out, you're not going to be able to tell. And again, you can get more specific with it if you wanted to. And that's where Photoshop is going to come in handy. We'll get to that here in just a moment. But we'll just continue to move across here. And I'm not even going to have to do anything there. I mean, that looks really good. So now we get to this area here. I made my brush a little bit bigger because these lines are starting to separate a little bit more. So we'll see if I can get rid of this with one large brush here. So I'll do that, and well, that does not look very good. So where's that pulling from? All right, it's pulling from down here. So I'll drag this over, and we'll have it sample from a different portion. And I'll go ahead and I'll hit the H key to see how that looks. Well, that does not look very good. And this is where Photoshop is going to really come in handy. I'll go ahead and I'll just hit the delete key on my keyboard while I had that brush stroke active to delete that heel mark. And I'll make my brush smaller, and I'll try a little bit here in Lightroom. We'll see how detailed we can get. And again, I'll keep that exposed. I want this to kind of look like water here. Well, I mean, not kind of, I really do want it to look like water. I'll hit the H key. And so that's not looking too bad there. As we get over here where the white water is kind of transitioning to just the regular river water, well, it's going to get kind of tough. And so I think what we want to do is go ahead and stop there and head over to Photoshop. But we'll zoom out here, and I'll hit the H key on my keyboard to see our progress. Well, that's looking really pretty good. So now to enter Photoshop, what we're going to want to do is right-click on our image and hit Edit in Photoshop. So we'll do that, and Lightroom comes up with this dialog box, and it asks if you want to edit a copy with the Lightroom adjustments. Do you want to edit just a copy of the image, or do you want to edit the original file? These last two options here, do not carry over the adjustments that you've made in Lightroom. So it's best to use Edit a Copy with Lightroom Adjustments. If we didn't choose that, well, everything that we did in Lightroom will be lost, and we would just be working on either the original image or a copy of the original image. So we will select Edit a Copy with Lightroom Adjustments. We'll hit Edit, and that will open up Photoshop. And depending on your computer, the specs on your computer, it may take a little while to open Photoshop. Again, remember, Photoshop is a very large program, very powerful. It takes a little while to open up sometimes. So just try and be patient. All right, so here we are in Photoshop. And what we want to do is we want to create 2 layers. Photoshop works on layers. Unlike Lightroom, where Lightroom does not have layers, Photoshop, you can add different layers to your image to make different adjustments, and you can have as many layers on an image as you want. However, when we're cloning, we just really need 2 layers. We need the background layer, and then we're going to copy that layer, and we're going to actually clone on the copied layer. Now, we're not going to get too in-depth here into Photoshop. This whole group is about Lightroom. It's not about Photoshop, but Photoshop can assist you in your learning of Lightroom. So this is going to touch just kind of basically here in Photoshop, just to show you the cloning that you can do in Photoshop. Now, to keep this tutorial from getting too long, I'm going to go ahead and make this into 2 tutorials. I will stop this here, and we'll pick this up in another tutorial. All right, guys, we will talk to you soon. Go ahead and practice that advanced cloning in Lightroom, and we'll get to Photoshop here in just a moment.